Hello and welcome, Success Secret Nation, to this episode of the Success Secret podcast with your host, Hussein Talib. In this episode, we are going to be talking about how to become a franchise owner, and is franchising for you. Meet Gregory Mohr, a visionary entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and driving force behind franchise Maven. Greg's journey from a seasoned microelectric circuit engineer to the CEO and founder of thriving franchise empire is nothing short of inspiring. Gregory shares the central theme of his life's work, the transformative power of franchising. Drawing on his vast experience as a restaurant manager, engineer, and franchise owner, Gregory offers a roadmap to financial freedom through a strategic investment in franchises. Greg, welcome to the Success Secret podcast.
Hussein, thank you for having me, sir. It's an honor to be here.
I'm glad you are joining me for this one of the podcast. So, first of all, because this is the Success Secret podcast, I want to know throughout your career and working with other people, what and how do you define success as, and how do you see other people define it or have certain misconceptions around success?
Success to me is doing what you want when you want, having the time to do the things that you enjoy. If you enjoy running that business and doing things throughout the day, then different people define success different ways. Some people will define it as being with family, with friends, and being the time to do that. So whatever way you do it, franchising is a good way to go about it. Not for everybody, but it's a good way and it's a good option to have. But as far as defining success, doing what I want, when I want, whenever I want.
Hmm. That's very impressive to do, especially whenever we want. That's I would say it's about time, and time is the most important asset that we have, and it's the same time passing on all of us on earth. So now, speaking of franchising, how someone can become a franchise owner is franchising for them. So first of all, why do you think franchising is an important aspect of building business and wealth? Because it's an important asset. A lot of people have it. We see it in our daily life, especially with the big brands, right? But we are talking here about, we could also be talking about the smaller ones, like having a smaller brand name and you take it. So, why did you conclude that franchising is a good way to go, in your opinion?
The same, in my opinion and in my experience, I have experienced both the franchising world and the private business world. So let me preface that with just saying that franchising is not necessarily right for everybody on that. For some people, it's a great option. For some people, it's not. But the reason that I chose franchising is I owned, while I was an engineer over a Motorola Semiconductor, a friend of mine, another engineer and myself, we bought a dry cleaner, a privately owned dry cleaner business. We had also bought some storage units, did that. And I owned real estate investments as well, rental properties. I got to tell you that running that dry cleaners when I knew nothing about running a dry cleaners was a bit of a challenge. Now we really, the two of us, had nobody to turn to say, where do we get the tools, equipment? If it breaks down, how do we get things fixed? What do we order supplies? We had to come up with all that ourselves. So for me, that was a bit challenging on that. We did overcome that, and we did do it. But then I got into the world of franchising. I'd actually started with franchising way back in high school when I got a job at Taco Bell and I worked for a master franchisor there, which was my first introduction into franchising. Really liked that world on that one. So when both of us left the Motorola Semiconductor, it was actually Freescale Semiconductor at the time. When we left there, I turned all my parts or my shares of the business over to my friend. He ran that himself, and I said, I've got to get myself into another business. I really like that franchising because they have that. Not only do they have a proven track record that you can get into when you're investigating which franchise to get into, but they have that game plan, step-by-step game plan of what to do. You've got a whole team of people to call upon if you ever have any questions, if you need any help at all. Not only the franchisor, but all those franchisees that you talk to along the way are also not competing with each other. They're all helping each other grow their business. So I think it's a good option for people out there to do it. I did it because I wanted that help. I wanted that support. I wanted that whole team of people. I wanted that whole tribe of people to help me build my business and make it grow.
Yeah, you are mentioning something very important here. Owning a franchise is that the mother company, let's say, they would provide a lot of things for the person who is wanting to franchise, like the equipment, the training, the processes, the SOPs, a lot of things. So they are cutting short a lot of things in business for you, right? So basically, you come in, you kind of would say like take you won't start from the beginning, you would start like from the middle, let's say. So it's a easier process. But now, how would you say that if someone thinking about franchising, we know there is like multiple opportunities that go from big companies to smaller ones. What is the main ideas? Let's forget the money because we know that there is some kind of money involved, of course, in that. Let's put that aside. What are the most important aspects other than money? And we will return to talk about money and how it could be a way to do franchising.
Great question, Hussein. What you want to start with there is basically what is that franchise, or what franchises in general are looking for people with your experience on that. So basically, where have you been? What do you bring to the table on that? If you haven't had any sales training or done any sales, then probably the Sandler sales training franchise is probably not going to be for you because you don't do any of that. So when you're looking at different franchises, look at what makes a successful franchisee in their system. What kind of a background do they need? What kind of skill set are they looking for? So that's where you've been. So where are you at now? So when you're looking at a franchise, you need to look at what kind of a time investment are you looking to put into that franchise for it. Not all franchises require you to work it full time. There are many that you can do semi-absentee, just like a friend of mine did. We ran our privately owned business semi-absentee. On that, he have a manager run it, and you manage the manager, and you manage the profit and loss statements on that. So think about where you're at right here and now. How much time are you willing to invest in that franchise, and make sure that franchise has a model if you want to do semi-absentee and has people running it semi-absentee on that you can do it, that you can do it that way, and you can ask people that have been doing it, what is it like to run semi-absentee, and how many hours are you actually putting in? So where have you been? Where are you at? And now where do you want to be? What you want to do is look at that franchise system, whatever you're getting into, and looking at what's the long-term goals of that franchise. What's the longevity of that? The services that they offer or the products that they offer. Can many people use those? Do many people need those? Look at what you're trying to really accomplish with that franchise system. Are you wanting to just get enough money to where you can, like I talked about before, do whatever you want, whenever you want? Or are you looking to give back to society where you want something more that's community driven on that? So look at the culture also on that one. Make certain it's a good cultural fit on that. But always look at where have you been? What do you bring to the table? What that franchise is looking for in someone like you. Where are you at now? What kind of time do you have to invest in that franchise? And then where do you want to be, and making certain that that franchise aligns with your long-term goals of where you want to be 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay, can you tell us a bit more and expand on the type of franchises? Because I think this is an important like issue within franchising, because there could be different, let's say, models of franchising. Because when we add financing into the table, that would be something that different ways that could be starting a franchise for the person who is looking to franchise. So what are the type of franchising, and what do you think are the easiest way to start franchising, adding to that the financial issue with that?
So Hussein, that's a great question. A lot of people come to me, especially my real estate investors on that, but most people actually that come to me, first thing they think of, Hussein, when you and I are driving down the road, what do we see? We see the McDonald's, we see the Taco Bells, we see Meineke, Mako, Supercuts, Great Clips. We see brick and mortar franchises. That's what's in our mind because that's what we see every day. So that is one type of franchise. A brick and mortar franchise is one type. It's going to be probably the larger of the investment. So generally speaking, you're looking at $400,000 or $500,000 total investment, which means you're probably going to need around a $400,000 or $500,000 net worth to get into it. On that one, there's many that can be run semi-absentee. You don't have to do them full time on that. The other type of franchises that people don't always think about or really know about is the service industry franchises. So the services industry franchises are different from brick and mortar in that with brick and mortar, you build it and they will come. Put it on a nice A+ real estate location. People drive by, they see it, they go, we got to go check that out. With the service industry franchises, your clients don't necessarily know you exist until they need you. So then you need a good franchise system to drive people to you when that need arises. Now you're looking at around $150,000 investment, give or take on that one. A work from home, a small office, maybe some equipment, maybe not on there. Many different essential services in there. Quite a few of my people really enjoy the essential services, ones that people need all the time. If our AC is broke or if our heater's broke, boy, it's got to be fixed and it's got to be fixed now. So those were sort of the things where it doesn't matter what the economy is doing. And if plumbing goes out, you got to get that plumbing going. Neighbors aren't going to appreciate you going to the bathroom outside because your plumbing's broken on that. So these are the sort of things a lot of my people like, but there's also other ones. You can get into senior care, you can get into tutoring, many different types of business. Think of Mike Rowe on the dirty jobs on those. There's a lot of franchises like that or doing jobs that people just don't necessarily want to do, but they're essential to get done. And as far as getting those franchises funded, many different ways. The people that I work with, they fund franchises on a regular basis. Franchises have a proven track record of success on there. So that part's easy. As long as your credit's good, it's very easy to get funding for a franchise that you're looking into. So if you're to go with a service industry franchise, you probably go with an SBA Express loan on that. Generally speaking, you put down about $20,000 and they give you about $150,000 to $200,000 to work with on that. If you go with a brick and mortar, you're probably looking at like a 7A loan on that, and then you put down about 20% down, something like that. You can also use your 401k plan from another employer if you don't want to get into debt. If you want to use your own money to invest that, but there are many different ways to go about getting it invested in there, and many different franchises. Just about a franchise in every single industry that we have out there, Hussein, which is really great. A lot of opportunities.
Definitely, that's very important. So now, these type of things you mentioned, there are the brick and mortar, for example, and the type of services of franchising. Do you think that brick and mortar businesses kind of are for the bigger businesses or the bigger companies, the behemoth of things like you mentioned, Mac, these things that are really big businesses that are already established? Like now, if someone would like to take a McDonald's franchise ownership, it would take, I think, way much more money than, for example, taking on a service franchise, for example. So do you think that it should be like a certain decision making in choosing the franchise? It's not about sometimes how big the company is. There should be certain things to avoid and the mistakes to avoid when choosing the franchise?
Yeah, great question, Shane. There's a few different things to avoid when looking at a franchise system. A good franchise system like McDonald's, it's or Supercuts or Great Clips, something that's Meineke Mako, something that's been around for a long, long time, is a good, solid franchise to get into because they've got a track record of success, and you've got a lot of franchisees to call upon on there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should go that way. There are things to consider and mistakes to avoid are, first off, don't think that you're going to be a millionaire in a year or two. If you buy a McDonald's restaurant, you're going to be putting in a lot of money, but you've got a lot of money to pay back. So you're probably not going to be a millionaire in a year or two. That's just one of those things. You may be in a few years down the line, you may be, but a lot of the franchises do make really good money. But just keep in mind, it does take a little bit of work to get going there. Don't expect to be a millionaire in a year or two. Don't let what's in fashion cloud your judgment on that. There's a lot of things that pop up on a regular basis, franchise and the people that are going there a lot. Look at the business model itself and how they can sustain themselves over the years and get to know how do they make their money? How does the money come in? So don't let that cloud your judgment. Keep funding in mind. Always do that because you don't want to run out of money. So you want to make certain that you meet the financial requirements of that franchise. You would expect the franchise to do that as well. So if you're investing $500,000 in a franchise, or that's what their cost is, their total investment is, you should have at least a $500,000 net worth so you don't run out of money. So keep that in mind on that. Always talk to existing franchisees when you're going through the process. as many as you can. Not only is that franchisor going to help you grow your business, but all those franchisees that you talk to, those are people you're going to make friends with. Nobody's, for the most part, about 90% of franchises, they're not competing with each other. They have their own designated territory that no other franchisee can come into. So they're your friends. They're going to help you grow. Always talk to the existing franchisees and take advantage of educated people who don't cost you anything. So free support people, free advice people. SCORE chapter, SCORE. Your local SCORE chapter in town is a good one to get into, and ask them about your business and what you're going to do. They're business people that have been around in your area for quite some time. I used them when I was looking at my different franchises, and I ran a few of my franchises by them, and they said, yeah, that one looks good, that one's a little iffy. So always take advantage of as many people as you can, Chamber of Commerce, to go through and decide on which franchise is best for you.
Yeah, definitely. So now, can you give us a pointer of the most important due diligence? Like we're talking about, the person who's looking to franchise a business should look into multiple things. What are there some kind of alarming things that if you see you should walk away from and not continue this opportunity, let's say, and franchising this kind of business or this company, and go and look for something different?
There are a couple of things we're saying that you could take a look at that are going to be red flags. One, when you're looking into getting that franchise system. So when you get into a franchise, you've got a one-time franchise fee. Generally speaking, doesn't matter which franchise it is, how much the investment is, it's generally around $50,000, give or take. One-time fee gets you everything trained, everything you know how to do. The other fee is going to be your royalties. So those are going to be between 5 and 10% off the top, pretty much universal across the board. You want that franchise system to be making the majority of their money off of the royalties. That means that as you grow your business and you make more money, they make more money. So their prime directive is to get out there and make certain you make as much as you can, so they make as much as they can. So when you're going through and you're investigating the franchise, make certain that they're not making their money off something else. So if they're a restaurant franchise or they're making money off of kickbacks because of the food you have to buy from a certain vendor, is that where they make most of their money? If it is, it's probably a red flag. It's got to be they're making most of their money off of the royalties you get, so you know that they have that vested interest in having you grow that business so they make the most money. Always on that. One thing we take a look at, though, that we get a little concerned about when we're looking at franchises as well, is how many franchises have they sold versus how many franchises have they opened. It's a big one with things that are real popular up front, especially in the brick and mortar area. If they've sold 500 franchise units and they have 50 franchise units open, that's a big backlog of franchise units they need to get open. So you need to check pretty thoroughly if they've got that team in place and they're hiring the right people to get those franchises open. So that one's a little concern. Those two things are probably the biggest things I'd worried about, is making certain they make most of their money off the royalties, and check to see that they don't have a disproportionate of franchise territories sold versus franchise territories open.
Yeah, they should help you make money from operation of the business so they can make money off of it. And the second thing that you mentioned is like how many uh, franchise owner are they taking in? Like that's very important. Like even if they are a good doing franchising for and helping others build their business through their the market trademark of that business, that big business that is already known, for example. But if they are taking so many people at one time and they cannot handle it, that could be an issue, because eventually you want that business owner of the franchise to be successful. So you would be, as you mentioned, successful and have money flowing in for the 5 to 10%, whatever the deals are in that space. So that's very important. So now, throughout your business and career, what was the worst advice that you have ever received in regards to business in general, or if you can specify also in regards to franchising?
Yeah, the worst advice I ever got was stick with your corporate job. Don't get into franchising. You went to college, so for 4 or 5 years to get that engineering degree and get that job. Don't go get into a franchise. Stick with the engineering job. That was probably the worst advice. Uh, but I still love my dad, even though he gave me that advice. That was very nice.
Oh,
He's just an old-fashioned kind of guy that way. I didn't take his advice. I went with the franchising thing.
yeah, I guess sometimes the kids have to defy their parents a little bit. So
Every
it's not
once in a while, not too often, every once
yeah.
in a while.
Yes. So is there something that you can add here at last of this episode, at the end of this episode, that can add value as a takeaway for the people who are listening?
Yes, Hussein, great question. Options. It's always good to have options. If you're going to go into business for yourself and you're looking at privately owned businesses versus franchising, or just privately owned businesses, always bring the franchising thing into the loop. You want that franchise system to get you to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you do it yourself. So if you're going to buy a privately owned business, if you're going to start your own business, throw in the franchising there. It may not be right for you. It's not right for everybody. I'm all about education, getting you that information you need along the way to make that decision. But it's good to have options on there. Check it out and see if it's a good option for you.
Yeah, definitely. Someone who's looking to be a business owner, entrepreneur, whether online or offline, it's always good to check out opportunities and see the options available and try to take a bit of risk in that to see because eventually you wouldn't know if something works unless you take action. So that's very important. And sometimes you will lose some money. But you have to have some reserve in the bank, I guess. So that's you don't want to stay broke. So that's very important. Yeah. So Greg, where can people learn more about you and what you do and about franchising?
Go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com. Email me at greg@franchisemaven.com or just give me a call at 361-772-6401.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg, for being with me on this episode of the Success Grid podcast. Really insightful episode and very important topic for people who are specifically because franchising requires not just time investment but also money investment, financial investment. So it's very important decision to make and it needs to be, as we mentioned here lastly, it's about considering the opportunities or the options that you have, and it's a good business model to be in because the companies that you choose to franchise from are helping you in many things in their procedures and the equipments, multiple things and trainings. So it could make things easier for people who are looking to build their businesses instead of from scratch. You would be like 50% up. So that's very important.
It helps, yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you for having me, Hussein. I'm honored.